Sig Sauer has effectively defeated Glock, not just legally speaking, but also in the eyes of the public's perception of each company. And I do believe that in the end, in the history books of the Second Amendment, Sig Sauer will go down as being remembered for the company that stood up for their product and stood up for your Second Amendment right to actually own a normal semi-automatic striker-fired handgun. I have some very interesting facts that will correct the narrative of what some GunTube channels, myself included, and what the mainstream media has reported but not corrected or redacted in regards to Sig Sauer's legal battles against people that are going after their Sig Sauer P320 pistol. I have a number of other facts that I want to share with you to correct the narrative, and then I'm going to share with you why I ultimately do feel that Sig Sauer is winning and looking real hot right now against Glock Incorporated and Shadow Systems and any other Glock cloner. And spoiler alert, Glock, because they canceled their Generation 3 through 5 guns, they are now in fact a Glock cloner. They're disguising it as an innovative tactic. Oh, we're releasing the Generation V Glock and it's going to be the brand new V Glock. That is in fact them trying to clone their own gun, but is not a tried and true proven design at all. And we all know that the Generation 4, when it came out, had massive issues. So that is exactly what I'm expecting to happen here. We're going to get into this email on the iPad of Truth from somebody that is very, very close to the Sig Sauer legal battles and the Sig Sauer situation with the P320. I'm not going to share their contact information or out them yet. However, they watch pretty much every one of these videos, and if they DM me and say, hey, share my name, I don't care, I just wanted to correct the narrative, I don't care either, so let me know, dude. But you have on here confidential for your stuff, so I'm not going to share your name unless you say you don't care. Let's get into it. Watched your Sig viewpoint video. Just a minor correction for future videos. $10 million of the $11 million lawsuit that you referenced was vacated by a judge. The final $1 million is still pending appeal and will likely have the same outcome. This part, of course, never got the same coverage as the original headline, and there's some other stuff that will remain anonymous as of right now. You can go look that up. I have a link here. I'll try to remember. P320 vacated in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and $10 million judgment against Sig Sauer lawsuit. Okay, so remember that big story where they're like $11 million, the P320 is the worst gun in the world, and I reported on this around the same time that the Air Force had the incident that has now been disproven, where those two airmen were not in fact killed by, or I guess initially the first airman was not in fact killed by an uncommanded discharge from a Sig M18 pistol, but he was, I'm not going to say for say, but what is being speculated is from a horseplay incident, and that is what's being reported out of the United States Air Force right now. Keeping in mind, I do not represent the War Department of the United States Army in any way, okay? So the famous case where $11 million were paid out against, someone going after the Sig Sauer P320 because of an injury or an uncommanded discharge. Well, that is in fact not true. $10 million was vacated, and the last $1 million, probably around the time that this is posting, that last $1 million will be returned as well to Sig Sauer. That is just the facts, okay? Now, moving forward. Now, we'll put away the iPad of Truth. We have a bunch of other stuff. And I want to briefly say, because there's some guys that have been DMing me like, I can't believe you're defending Sig. If I get it wrong or facts of a situation change, I will come back out and say, hey, I was wrong. These are the new facts. I got the notebook of truth. I got the iPad of truth. I got all the facts, the situation. And whenever I have an opinion, I'll say when it's my opinion. If you look at situations, certain other GunTube channels, right? If you look like GBRS and DJ Shipley, during the early days, the very early days of the Sig Sauer P320 drama, he came out and said the crisscross applesauce, if he doesn't see one go off, unless it's crisscross applesauce, he won't believe him. At the time that he said that, probably a very bad decision for his business or whatever he's got going on to say that. But that's what he believed and it's what he said. But if you look long term, now moving forward, yes, we've had 80 to 100 lawsuits that have been filed against Sig Sauer. In those cases, the vast majority have nothing has been paid out at all. And in the cases that stuff has been paid out, retroactively that money has been appealed and won and given back to Sig because there's simply not the smoking gun, if you will. We don't have the smoking gun of the guns just going off on camera, no one touching it. And there's going to be guys in this video that might say, well, the Achilles heel tactical video. No, in that video, all you see is he's looking downrange. For some reason, some dude has his weapon out. That's a safety thing. It's not really it's a rangeism thing. But the camera's looking downrange. Boom, goes off. It pans to the right, and the dude immediately says, "Is that a effing P320?" Why would you say that? I get the gun drama is kind of in everyone's head on the firing line. People like to bullshit here and there on the firing line, like, oh, the P320. I'm one of those people. I like to go out and talk about, oh my gosh, is this thing going to go off? But with over 40,000 rounds fired in my hands of a M18 or P320 or M17 specifically for the vast majority of those rounds in competition and professional training and at work, I've never had an issue. And when you see videos like the Achilles heel tactical of like, oh my goodness, a gun went off over there, and all of a sudden the RSO or the primary instructor is saying, is that a P320? Doesn't look good in my opinion, okay? So we're going to get into a bunch of facts as to why I think Sig Sauer is in fact winning, in my opinion. I am going to, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I have a NSR tactical holster on the way for this thing, and I'm going to start carrying it with, I'm going to start carrying this M18. Why not? Because I think at this point, the narrative, it's the snowball effect happened, and it's one of those things that I think occurred here where everyone said, well, there's got to be an issue with these guns because there's so many people saying there's issues, so there has to be an issue. I was one of those people. I was like, holy cow, we got 80 cases of uncommanded discharges. We have this Air Force incident, since which has been proven that it was not the case. We have all these Marine Corps investigations that have to this point been unfounded. We have a security guard in the Army that shot themselves with their M17 service pistol the pistol was not at fault. The actual guy just ND'd into himself while cleaning his pistol. So we have all these cases that everyone knee-jerked on, myself included. Oh my gosh, the pistols have to be broken. But after going to the Marksmanship Master Trainer course, now being a Marksmanship Master Trainer, after earning my Excellence in Competition bronze badge with an M17, after competing in USPSA with the P320, after carrying an M17 now, I believe, since 2018 or so, since 2018, carrying an M17 as my secondary weapon, as not speaking for the Army or for the War Department, but my experiences are as a senior non-commissioned officer in the infantry, paratrooper, instructor, drill sergeant, all this stuff, expert infantryman. I haven't had any issues at work, and I haven't had any issues off work. And now we have these facts that, things keep coming to light that maybe the P320, maybe the M17 didn't have the issues. And then in the same exact sentence, we have companies like Glock that are literally bending the knee, giving away your Second Amendment rights, have set a dangerous standard of their 20 million pistols, $1.1 billion company, Glock Incorporated, and now Shadow Systems, allegedly, also bending the knee, $15 million annual revenue, 100,000 pistols in circulation for that company, Shadow Systems. What we have now is all these Glock cloners, because yes, Glock is a Glock cloner with the Generation V, because they're saying it's innovation, but they've never tried and tested it. We don't have hundreds of millions, if not billions of rounds on it like we do with the Sig, P320, M17 at this point. I'm about to share the facts of that. But the point is, as information changes, as facts present themselves, if you hate something so much that you're not willing to update your stance and your take because you're a GunTube channel, you're a news organization, and as facts change, if you're not willing to change with them and adjust your opinions on a situation, especially if you didn't have, if in the beginning it was like, okay, 80 guns go off, allegedly, a Marine Corps investigation, an Army security guard investigation, an Air Force investigation. Air Force is unfounded, Marine so far is unfounded, the security guard shot himself in the Army, so on and so forth. All these things come to light. The Achilles heel tactical video proves nothing. And if you look at videos like the law enforcement officer that had her gun in a bag, dropped the bag, gun goes off, who's at fault there? Is it the gun? Because do we know if there was a trigger guard, or do we know if that weapon was on safe and was in with other items in a bag? And spoiler alert, what is probably leading to this is there's no hinged safety dingus, if you will, safe action design on these triggers, okay? So what is most likely happening is they're carrying, this gun is clear and safe. What is most likely happening, is my opinion at this point, these people are untrained, okay? Because guess what? Spoiler alert, even in the Army, which I have experience, which I'm not speaking again for that professionally, but there's going to be untrained people or people trained to a lower standard that are not meeting the standard that may potentially still have that weapon locked, cocked, and ready to rock on their hip in condition red. And guess what? Condition red means a round of the chamber, weapon on safe. And guess what? Sometimes you've heard it and I've heard it. Oh, I just leave the safety off or whatever. We've all heard these stories, right? So what could happen if there's 4 million of these things? We're going to go over the facts of that here in a second. But if there's 4 million of these in circulation, there will be people trained that are not to standard. We'll just put it that way, okay? Whatever your political feelings are, we all know we went through COVID. We went through some woke era, we'll just put it that way, where not everyone is essentially the guy you want breaching the door. We'll just put it that way, okay? So that is where I think a lot of these cases are coming from. Now, obviously, there were the 141 pistols that had issues in the Air Force out of the 130,000 in the Air Force, total M18 pistols in the Air Force, and there were the 141 that had a safety, the internal safety lever design, right? Basically saying that it could potentially have an issue. Hey, that's a fact, okay? The Air Force admitted 141 of their guns. They didn't say that they could go off uncommanded, but they said that they had a defect. And hey, that's a fact. If the Air Force says 141 of their 130,000 guns, M18s, this is an M17, but if they're saying that that's the case, then hey, that's the case, right? So we're going to get into more facts, but what I just want to hammer that point home, that you should be above, nobody is above reproach, nobody is above correction, and just because you have a YouTube channel and you made your entire personality, okay, you guys know who I'm talking about, just because you make your entire personality about going after a product, going after a gun, going after a company, but when more information comes out about that company and they're correcting the narrative and things that never actually occurred are being corrected, you have to come out and say, hey, I know I made a video. You know, I'm calling some people out very specifically right now. I know I made a video saying that the Air Force had a gun go off and an airman was killed. Well, that's not what happened, okay? We had an airman that was killed, what sounds like with horseplay. Again, go look up the official report. We had false statements made. We had another individual that was, unfortunately, has passed away as well that may or may not have made those false statements. So if you're a channel and you're out here making your name because you want to get clicks, okay, no shame in that. But what I would say is, if the narrative changes, if the facts of a situation change, you should also be willing to arrive at the same conclusion logically. Logic has entered the chat and say, hey, Air Force was wrong. No facts proven yet. Hey, guess what? There were issues with the Berettas. The locking block were breaking. There were issues with the 1911s when they were in service as the primary service pistol. So just because you have 141 pistols that had an issue, you don't think there were locking block safety issues with the Beretta M9? I lived through that era. Yes, there were, okay? And if you brought every single Beretta in and inspected every single Beretta from the Army, hey, I'm just saying what my personal experiences are, not speaking professionally, again, for the War Department of the United States Army, but my personal experiences are there were massive issues with the Beretta M9 when I carried one as a Bradley commander and as a assistant reconnaissance team leader and as an RTO and as a saw gunner, okay? When we qualified with them, there were issues with the Berettas, even back then, okay? So any gun is going to have teething issues, and I think that's what we're experiencing. Let's get into some of the facts, as I had to go on a little bit of a rant there, because there's going to be guys that see this and text me and DM me and say things like, I can't believe you're siding with Sig Sauer. Well, dude, when I have facts, okay, proven by very reputable sources and the mainstream media that has came out quietly and corrected the narrative on the $11 million thing, when the Air Force comes out, all the things I just discussed and corrections are made, I'm going to go to the facts, okay, the notebook of truth. I'm going to go to the facts. And the facts right now are all pointing to Glock is trash, okay? Just because you're a Glock fanboy, the company, the gun is fine, the company itself is trash. Okay, listen to what I'm saying. The company bent the knee. They sided with anti-Second Amendment legislation. They sided with it in Oklahoma. They canceled the sale of the Generation 3 through 5. They set a dangerous precedent in California 11 or 1B 1127. You guys will post down below if I got that slightly off. But the point is, Glock is not your friend. They're the enemy at this point of the Second Amendment. And now Shadow Systems allegedly is joining suit. We'll see what Ruger does. We'll see what PSA, Palmetto State Armory, does. But right now, Glock itself is a Glock cloner, so you should look at the facts of the situation and not be so emotional and not be so stuck in your ways that you can't say, oh, well, all the facts I'm about to read in a second are in fact facts. And guess what? Because a gun had a bad, did not look good. I'll say that. It did not look good for Sig Sauer. It did not look good for the M7 either. But now we have the M7A1 looking a lot better. It's lighter, it's shorter, it's a better gun. If you haven't heard of that, the new service rifle coming out, the M7A1, looking better. The P320 upgrades that are coming out, looking better. I didn't have an issue with these ones anyway. This gun made it to 6,000 rounds and had no issues. This gun made it to 6,000 rounds and had no issues. And if you factor in all the competition shooting and professional shooting that I've done and USPSA shooting with P320s, you name it, dude. Just to give you guys a small example of one course. Marksmanship Master Trainer course, 30 students, 5 instructors, sometimes 6 instructors, depending on the cadre to student ratio. You're out there, let's say 36 pistols. You're out there shooting all day. It's a 5.5 week course or so. So you're out there shooting, I would say, for 2 weeks straight. 35, 36 pistols. Some days you're shooting a couple thousand rounds per pistol. You name it. Round counts are high for urban marksmanship and incidents are 0. So you name it, okay? You name the problem. What do I know, okay? Just a marksmanship master trainer, no big deal, okay? Weird flex, I know, but I just kind of got to explain the situation of the firing line because some guys will see one incident and they think it's everything. Let's get into the facts. The facts of the matter are, okay, Glock has pulled their gun. They're now technically a Glock cloner, making the Generation V 3 through 5. We talked about $1.1 billion company, 20 million guns in circulation. That's a lot of guns. Let's talk about the Sig Sauer for a second. 4 million guns manufactured. 2 million are owned by civilians. 1,000 police departments, some of which to include are the Texas Department of Safety, the Texas Rangers, the state troopers, of which I have trained professionally. Those guys 2 years ago. So I've trained those guys, very professional organization. And 1,000 others, right? 1,000 organizations. We also have 421,000 MHS, M18, and M17 pistols that are in use by the War Department, previously the Department of Defense. 195,000 are in the Army, 130,000 are in the Air Force, 61,000 are in the Navy, and 35,000 are in the Marines. When the Air Force did that massive inspection of all their pistols, 141 had issues out of that massive number. That's pretty good odds, okay? Especially when they've never had an official incident that has been proven against them, all right? Let's talk about how many bullets have been fired. This is the equation you're gonna wanna use, okay? There's 4 million guns. I'm gonna list out each and every equation for you, but bottom line up front, there's 4 million pistols. We're only gonna factor in 2.5 million because the 1.5-ish to 2 million pistols that they're unaccounted for, but they're in the hands of civilians. This is publicly reported from Sig Sauer themselves, but we are only gonna factor in the exact numbers I say here today. We're gonna do 8 years total. That's for the total time that these pistols have been around, 8 years. Keep in mind we're underballing and we're giving a very conservative number, 50 rounds per pistol per year of the 8 years, okay? So of each number, 8-year total timeline and 50 rounds per year, which is way low. If you take in annual qualification for most police departments or military organizations or even civilians that are burning it down on the range with these things, myself included, that are just out here burning them down for torture tests on camera, go check out the video. I have I have like freaking 20 videos burning these things down, torture testing them. Anyway, let's get into how many bullets, how many 9x19 bullets, and yeah, this is just for 9x19. Okay, 9mm. Department of Defense, 421,000 pistols, okay, over 8 years. That's 50 rounds per pistol. 168 million rounds, 400,000. 168,400,000 rounds for just Department of Defense. Law enforcement, 50,000 pistols times 50 rounds per those 8 years. You get 20 million rounds. Civilian sector alone reported publicly 2 million 29,000 pistols, okay? So we're near the 33 million, little less than 3 million, about 2.5 million is how many pistols I'm reporting. Keep in mind the 1.5 million pistols that I'm not even adding in this equation for other calibers and other 9x19 guns, 9mm guns that Sig Sauer is reporting is out there in the wild themselves. Civilian. We have 2,029,000 pistols. If you factor that by 50 rounds per year of 8 years, again, way lowballing number. We have 811,600,000. That is well over, all combined, over 1 billion rounds. And if you factor in all the pistols, which we're not, but if you were, because we're at 1 billion rounds already of 9x19, if you factor in the pistols we haven't included, that would put you well over 2 billion rounds that have ever been fired through a Sig Sauer P320. That's a lot of guns, okay? And if allegedly 80 to 100 cases of an uncommanded discharge, okay? Let's take those billion rounds and we have 100 incidents, okay? Someone do the math, what the percentage is. I'm not saying that you're more likely to be hit by a semi-truck that just got hit by a dinosaur, that got hit by a meteor that fell from this asteroid meteor thing that is allegedly aliens coming in. So you got the alien asteroid or meteor that hits a dinosaur that was extinct, that hits another meteor, and then it hits a semi-truck and then runs you over. That's the likelihood of you having a P320 M17 go off uncommanded in the holster. And guess what? Most of these cases are most likely negligence, is what I'm assuming at this point, by poor training, poor handling. But let's say hypothetically, I'll meet you halfway. Let's say hypothetically 50 of these things, boom, went off because a dude put a 45 ACP, which is what could be another thing that's happening, a 45 ACP fire control unit in a 9mm chassis or gun, okay? So they have a 9mm slide and they have a 9mm grip and they have 45 ACP inside, okay? Sear, safety lever slips, gun goes off. Let's say that happened 50 times, but now we know, don't do that. Should have never happened anyway. Probably something that should have been fixed, but in this hypothetical world, if that's what's going on with the fire control unit of a 45 ACP and a 9mm slide and frame, yeah, that's still a major problem, especially when your main thing is, oh, it's modular. It's a modular handgun. You can switch stuff around. You can do whatever. It's crazy. You can own one fire control unit and have whatever slide and grip combination you want and whatever barrel and all this stuff. Yeah, still a pretty big issue, okay? Not saying it's not, but what I'm saying is, if I was a betting man, I would say if there was 50 incidents that were founded, crazy stuff where you put the wrong stuff and you put the wrong gun, the wrong slide, wrong fire control unit on the, everything's crazy and wrong because you were told by SIG that it's all interchangeable and modular, okay? That's a SIG problem, not a you problem. I'll meet you there. But 50 incidents out of the billion rounds fired and 4 million pistols in circulation, probably more, like 2 billion rounds fired out of those 4 million pistols because we only factored in 2.5 million of those pistols. You guys are picking up what I'm putting down, okay? I didn't do the very last equation there. Somebody will down below, but the odds of you getting hit by a uncommanded SIG P320 round are basically that of being hit by a literal piece of T-Rex Arms pride and reputation after they betrayed their brother, Lucas Botkin, and stole 51% of the company. That is the same likelihood, or of, I don't know, John Lovell coming out and saying that Israel is probably at fault for a lot of the stuff going on in Gaza as of the October 7th stuff, and they may or may not have let it happen allegedly, and in the future, you know, the same likelihood. You guys are picking up what I'm putting down, okay? So, with all that out of the way, what I'm saying here is there's a ton of ranges and training facilities that have canceled the allowance of you using a SIG P320, M17, M18 in their classes. My prediction is that those will retroactively, quietly, keep your eyes out, okay? I'm guessing, let's take a drink of coffee here because I'm on a cut and I'm starving. So, but my prediction is that those companies, those ranges, those facilities, those training organizations are going to very quietly start allowing you to bring your SIG P320s back to class, especially with the Air Force coming out and saying, hey, it wasn't the gun. Okay, so and let me know in the comments if you got this far who your favorite character from The Office is. Is it Jim? I think it might have to be Jim, or is it Michael Scott? Who knows? Okay, so my prediction, ranges and training facilities will most likely retroactively, quietly come back out and say, hey, if you want to bring your P320 to class, do it. The Army is upgrading, the whole War Department is upgrading their pistols to just a little bit more of an aggressive texture and whatever grip design you want. That's going to come out, and it has been announced in some of these war conferences, okay? So SIG is already innovating. They have been innovating, and we'll move on from there. Chicago Police Department. I know there's a lot of stuff going on over there with guys saying they want the guns, they don't want the guns. It's cost too much to replace it. There's a lot of stuff going on in Chicago PD. Maybe with this Air Force news and with this $11 million lawsuit that was not a thing and was now only a $1 million paid out, but that other $1 million is probably going to come back. It's looking real good for SIG. SIG is looking real hot right now. Not looking so hot for Glock. ICE, FBI, I expect that they will go through with their 3-year contract, 3 to 5 year contract with the Glock 19. And then I expect after this whole anti-2A thing and canceling the commercial sale of the Generation 3 through 5 combat and duty rated guns, and that leaving a major stain on the Glock Incorporated reputation, I anticipate some of these larger federal organizations potentially going back to where the Army's at right now, with just an upgraded P320 or M17. What else? Air Force. The Air Force has came out and said, hey, wasn't the gun, more to follow, right? I can't comment too much, and I won't here today on that. I'll let the Air Force do what the Air Force is going to do, and I'll just stay in my lane and let them stay on their lane. But you can go type in to your Google or whatever you're using, Air Force M18 incident. Type in today's date and figure out what the most recent result is, and you just found exactly what I'm trying to tell you. And GunTube, where I'll leave this rant, okay? 6 Sauer winning. If you're a GunTuber and you watch this video for some reason and you're thinking to yourself, well, trenches bending the knee for SIG. Well, I have no sponsorships, no affiliation with any company at all. I make pretty much nothing on this channel because by the time I factor in ammunition I spent burning down the guns on the range, time spent filming, I could have went out and got a job at McDonald's and made a lot more money than this channel will ever make, okay? So before you say I'm in bed with Sig Sauer, trust me, if I was in bed with Sig Sauer, I would have a big old Sig Sauer t-shirt on, a big old Sig Sauer hat on. I'd be telling you every day that I just got a $1 billion check from Sig. I am not in bed with any company, any affiliation. I had the Safariland thing going for a while, and guess what? I got bored. If you want to go use my link, cool. I get like 0.01, cents off of every dollar you spend. So thanks for doing that. Not saying don't do it, but do whatever you want, right? The point is, I don't care either way. I'm just trying to share the actual factual, that rhymes, I guess, information on what I believe is true. And what I believe is true, certain GunTube channels will make it their entire personality and continue to make it their entire personality about going after SIG. Cool, dude. But just understand the facts. This thing looks cool with the blue tiger stripe. Just understand the facts of the situation. Right now, the lawsuits, all the stuff I discussed here today, it's looking real good. It's looking real good for Sig Sauer, and it's not looking so hot for Glock. So if you're out here talking about why your Glock 19 or your Glock 47 or whatever is the best in the world, the gun may be good, but the company is trash, okay? So the same people that said, I'll never buy a Sig again, well, you got to be open-minded, I think. I've kind of had to correct myself on this as well. I'm not innocent of what I'm saying. That's why I'm trying to correct it now, right? So long story short, if you're a GunTuber and you're out here, beating the drum that SIG is trash, but you're not looking at the facts, you can still say SIG is trash if that's your opinion. Cool, SIG is trash, but at least correct. What my advice would be, correct the narrative if something is factually, on one side or the other, whether it be Glock, SIG, you name it, Shadow Systems. If Shadow Systems comes out and says that, hey, we're not bending the knee, and not only are we not bending the knee, we're going to sell 1 million more pistols because we want everyone to be armed and we want to make money, because that's That's how commercialism works, right? So if Shadow Systems were to come out and say, we're not bending the knee, we're going to make every freaking Generation 3 or 4 Glock clone ever made, I would be the first one to be like, hey, go support them. If Ruger were to do the same, that's what I'm going to say. But what it's looking like right now is that Sig is winning, Glock is losing, and these are the facts of the situation. So use this information for what you will. I guess I'll get you guys out of here. I've been ranting for a while. I got to go make some food because I'm starving. But you guys let me know what your thoughts and opinions are down below. And if you're just blatantly mad at me because I'm sharing the facts, go for a walk, go touch grass, smile, be happy, you know, go lift some weights, go to the range, enjoy it. If I meet you guys in person, I'll be glad to talk about it, hang out, whatever. But what it's looking like right now is Sig Sauer winning, Glock losing. All right, guys, I'll get you out of here. Cheers.